Welcome to Cozy Coven Chats with Jenny C. Bell, where we explore the journey of the witch. And welcome to another Cozy Coven Chat. I am your host, Jenny C. Bell, and we are continuing our deep dive and series on crystals and crystal healing. And today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite topics, crystal skulls. I will be giving you a little history, a little background from my best kind of memory, so please don't quote me. I will also be giving you some information on how and why you'd want to connect with a crystal skull and how I work with them in my life. So first of all, I wanted to mention two really good resources. My book, well, I said two. So my book would definitely be a good resource. Spirit Crystals, Discover Your Crystal Guide for Healing and Empowerment, comes out in the summer, July 8th here in the United States, and a month later in the UK and Australia. And my whole last chapter is dedicated to working with all the spirit crystals together in crystal grids. And also there's a section that's, I think, very helpful on crystal skulls. So that's a great place to start. Another great book is Judy Hall, The Crystal, you can't go wrong with Judy Hall, okay? She's got great books. She has a book called Crystal Skulls, Ancient Tools for Peace, Knowledge, and Enlightenment. And it's great. And she has a really wonderful story about buying a crystal skull who basically had seen a lot of violence and was neglected in a shop, and how they overcame that together. It's really sweet. And then it's kind of a surprise because it has nothing about crystal skulls on the book, but the source, and it's the source I used for my own book, The 13 Original Clan Mothers by Jamie Sams, Your Sacred Path to Discovering the Gifts, Talents, and Abilities of the Feminine Through the Ancient Teachings of the Sisterhood. And there's a whole you learn about the 13 original clan mothers, and then at the end she talks about a crystal skull connection that kind of blew my mind. And I'm a huge Jamie Sams fan. I have both of her oracle decks. She's passed away, but again, like Judy Hall, can't go wrong with Jamie Sams. She really helps you understand Native American teachings and how to really connect and heal the divine feminine. Beautiful author. So I wanted to share all those resources first, and then we'll kind of dive in here. So I've been working with crystal skulls for about 5 or 6 years, I would say. I will say that I do strongly believe I worked with them in past lives, because I've seen that in my own visions. It's come up in my Akashic records, and other people have seen it when they've given me readings. And I've always loved skeletons and skulls. Like, ever since I was a child. I actually collect sugar skulls as well. My Mexican bestie, shout out to Myra, has given me quite a few cool little skeletons and skull kind of themed things through the year. I just have always loved skeletons and skulls. I don't find them scary. I find them beautiful. I find them fascinating. And when I learned that someone had kind of put together the world of like my love of crystals and my love of skulls, and it was a thing that a niche kind of a thing that I could get into for spirituality, I was like, sign me up. Okay, so it's not for everybody. So I'm gonna put that out first. Not everyone believes in the power of crystals and the power to heal with crystals. Not everyone believes in spirit guides. And some people are really disturbed by skull imagery. And I respect all of that. So the reason why I say that not everyone believes in guides is because skull keepers, which is what I consider myself to be, believe that a guide can be invited into our skull, or sometimes comes with the skull, and we can communicate with that guide. I know, sounds kind of out there. But this is what we believe. And there are websites that are dedicated to rehoming crystal skulls. There are Facebook groups dedicated to rehoming them, because we're not looked at. You don't just like buy one and put it on a shelf and let it collect dust and just be like, yeah, it's cute or whatever. We believe that you can have a presence, inhabit the skull. You become a keeper of that skull. You learn its name. You work with it. And then sometimes the skull will be like, I'm done working with you. And then you go to a rehoming group and you have it work with someone else. There are certain big, large crystal skulls that are already awake and open, and sometimes they will help awaken other crystal skulls. And this is all part of the crystal skull kind of connection. And like I said, it's not for everyone. One of the most famous crystal skulls in history, and there's some really great information out there, is what's called the Mitchell-Hedges skull. And what's really interesting about this whole story is Mitchell-Hedges is basically the real life Indiana Jones. So he was an adventurer, he was, quote, an archaeologist of sorts, and he was going to South America and going into tombs and doing all those things, right? And trying to bring things back to museums. And he wrote 2 books about his life, and his stories in the books are different. So he wrote one like early on in his career about his adventures, and then later wrote, like closer to his death, wrote another memoir, autobiography, and some of the stories are different than in the first book. So he's kind of part, like the crystal skulls himself, he's part myth, part legend. Like, people don't really know all that's true. But we do know that he claims to have found a crystal skull in South America. Now, I say claims because not everyone believes the story. So he was in South America with his stepdaughter, and they were excavating pyramids or something similar to that, from what I remember. And she claims, she has, I think, passed since then, but all the way up into her death claimed that she was looking into the excavation site and saw something shining. And that was this Mitchell-Hedges, called the Mitchell-Hedges skull. You can give it a quick search. It is a pure crystal skull made out of clear quartz crystal, and the bottom, the jaw, is removable. And it's pretty much like a life size to a human. And she claims to have found it that day, and that many people throughout the years have claimed it to have supernatural powers. So there are people that have run different tests on it. There was a test on Expedition Unknown that proved that, yes, it was one piece of quartz, but with modern technology, it really looked as if it was a modern piece and not an ancient piece. The way the marks on it that sanded, that like made it smooth, all the grooves went one way, like a wheel would have sanded it, and the ancient people of that area did not use the wheel. So to the scientists and to the hosts of Expedition Unknown, it seemed as though it was not ancient, right? Because what the belief for so long about that crystal skull was that it was ancient alien technology of some kind, or kind of like an ancient, almost like an ancient spiritual race. Basically, if you've seen the Indiana Jones movie, a lot of people basically believe that the aliens had come at some point to South America, had taught the native people things, had helped them build the pyramids, and also had built these crystal skulls or made them in some way and left them behind as some kind of healing device. So that's one story of the legend of crystal skulls. Another story is that they are from Atlantis. So Atlantis, if you don't know, it's like Atlantis and Lemuria are these ancient islands, these places that supposedly existed in the real world, and were both evolved for their time, spiritual, really evolved places, and then horrible things happened to both of them, and they fell back into the ocean. Right, Lemuria is off the Pacific, Atlantis off the Atlantic. And so there are people, especially I read a lot of books of people from like the 70s and the 80s who seem to, when doing past life regression, could remember lives in both Atlantis and Lemuria. And so a lot of the information we get is from that. A lot of the information we get about it is from Edward Casey, who was the sleeping prophet. He would basically go into a trance and basically look like he was sleeping, and then would be able to connect with people in their past lives, connect with his own past lives, and he gave us a lot of the information that New Age and metaphysical people have used to talk about Atlantis and Lemuria. So one of the theories is that Mitchell-Hedges skull is one of 13 that were from Atlantis, and that Atlantis, you hear stories of both Atlantis and Lemuria being these ancient cultures, but being very technological savvy and using crystals for healing. They used sound for healing. They used crystals for healing and communication. People have talked about they used crystals to move vehicles. There's all of this kind of information. So in Lemuria, it was believed that the Lemurians connected to quartz crystal, and they used them to kind of code the earth, right? We have these ley lines, and they were using that as a way of communication. and you can actually buy, you probably have seen them for sale, Lemurian seed crystals. They are clear quartz crystals with like little lines on them, and that supposedly holds the records for Lemuria. And if you get one of those and you have a past life in Lemuria, it can really help you evolve. And then the crystal skulls, some people say there were some in Lemuria, but most people, if they're going to go this route, this kind of story, they're going to talk about Atlantis and talk about how they were part of Atlantis and the Atlantean priests used them in ceremony. And then when Atlantis fell, they took them out of Atlantis and hid them all over the world. And Mitchell Hedges was one of the ones that was found. Now, I'm using supposedly because, again, with spirituality, with metaphysical, with New Age, even with witchcraft, it's not science-based, right? And so this is conjecture. We do have some evidence of someone talking about Atlantis in ancient Greece, but we can't prove these things. These are things that maybe you hear these stories and you're like, yeah, this resonates with me. And I kind of think of it the way Sharon Blackie talks about in her books about, and even like Women Who Run with the Wolves, Joseph Campbell too, Myths We Live By, that there are certain myths, fairy tales, folklore stories that resonate on a soul level, right? That we just go, I feel that. I feel Alice in Wonderland. Like, I feel like Alice. I connect with that story. I dream about that story. I see symbols of that story. The story really resonates with me. This is how I personally view the Lemuria and the Atlantis stories. Avalon is another example, the ancient Avalon and the Isle of Avalon. I view it as myths we can live by. Like, if you feel a soul connection, then that's a truth for you in your soul and your spiritual movement. Doesn't mean that it's scientifically, historically accurate. Don't know, right? Doesn't matter when you're doing it, just you're using this myth to help you with your spiritual involvement, right? Don't know. And so those are all the different kind of stories of crystal skulls. Supposedly, there are the 13 out there. Some of them have been found. Again, I'm saying supposedly. And they get secretly traded by powerful people, right? It's another kind of conspiracy theory is that powerful people are in charge of these skulls and it brings them immense wealth and power and healing, and they get secretly traded. The skulls have different shapes, and I talk about that in my book. I think my book's the only one I mentioned that talks about the different shapes. You have a regular like humanoid, you have a traveler alien, you have a magical child kind of shape. There's animal ones. I have a dragon skull. They have these different kind of shapes to them. So regardless of whether you want to dive into the conspiracy theories and the stories and the myths and the supposed histories, totally up to you, right? The Mitchell Hedges is the most popular one because it's the only one, we've had some scientific tests done. It's the only one that's been photographed and in video, and it's the only one people really know about. And like I said, a lot of people have said they've had really deep spiritual experiences. You can read firsthand accounts on that. And to me, I've always been a person that's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care how the world came to be. The world is here. I don't care what story you believe about crystal skulls, but I know that working with this crystal skull really helps me. And I do believe there are 13 original skulls out there. Do I think they've been found? I'm not quite convinced. But I do believe in that. And Jamie Sams's book actually helped me really believe in that further and really kind of justify that belief. So that's kind of the background on the skulls. What does this mean for you as the at-home practitioner, right? As the spiritual seeker or the witchy woman or witchy human or witchy person that has seen a crystal skull at their local shop and bought one and is like, oh, well, now you're telling me like they're more than what, it's not just like a symbol for death, or I don't just put it on my Samhain altar. There's more to it. Yeah, there's more to it. So something that you can do is connect with the guide. You can invite a guide into the skull. Sometimes they come already with a guide. And so how do you do that? Well, cleanse your crystal, right? Cleanse your crystal skull. However you cleanse things, selenite, sacred smoke, water, if it's something you can get water on. Give it a good cleanse. Use the activation. the connection meditation that I shared in the last podcast, where instead of having a crystal with the big blanket and connecting with it, you're going to connect with the skull and the skull's energy. After you're done with the cleansing and the connecting, look into the skull's eyes and ask to connect with it. Ask for a name, ask to connect with it. I have 12 skulls in the house. I don't work with all of them. I have had an easier time connecting with quartz skulls. Now I like quartz, right? All the spirit crystals are in the quartz family. I personally have a deep connection with clear quartz. The quartz crystals feel more alive to me personally, and they're much easier for me to connect with. So that's personal. If you haven't bought one, you're thinking about buying one, I really highly suggest a clear quartz. My two favorite actually Lemurian clear quartz. And I do like them to be hand carved. So I want to be able to look at them. I want to see imperfection, because you can get them obviously laser carved and they look perfect. And some people are into that, but I just feel like they don't have a personality that way. I want them to be hand carved. I want to be able to see imperfections. I want to feel the humanness and there are some famous carvers out there. So you can look into that as well. There's some that are still making crystal skulls and make some amazing, amazing skulls, right? So I think a quartz family, and I think hand carved. And now if you already bought yours and it's not those things, it's okay. You can still connect with it. You're going to, like I said, cleanse, you're going to connect, and then you're going to ask for a name. Once you receive the name, then what you can do is just work with that crystal skull as a guide. And so what that means is you have spirit guides, you have a spirit team. And like I said in the beginning of this podcast, not everybody believes in that. So it does take a leap of faith for you to already believe in a spirit guide, to believe in the healing powers of crystals, and then to put that together and decide that, yeah, I want to be a skull keeper and I want to connect with the crystal. And like I've said before, sometimes we have to know what's possible, right? Like if you read Judy Hall's book, when you read my book, you'll hear our stories, you'll see what's possible with crystal skulls, and it really will help you kind of open up and connect with them more. If you're like, well, this isn't enough information, you have to wait for the book, okay? So last chapter of the book, I give you step-by-step guides on how to buy a crystal skull, how to connect with it, and then what to do from there. I have to save something for the book, right? But for now, what I want you to take away from this is that if you already have one at home or you've been thinking about getting one, do it. Get it, cleanse it, connect with it, and just see what unfolds. So something, just connect with it, ask for a name. If you don't get a name, ask again in a couple days. Take it with you if it's small. Have it sit next to you when you sleep, face you. Like I said in the previous podcast, ask to connect with it in your dreams. When you open your Akashic records, have it with you. If you meditate, have it with you. When you do card pulls, crystal skulls are amazing. I always have this crystal skull in particular with me when I do card readings. I have her face me and kind of help guide me, because crystals are amplifiers, especially clear quartz. It amplifies the energy. She helps me focus, and it's like, okay, like help me see anything I'm not seeing with my own eyes. So that's why she faces me. So it's like she's looking one way at the cards, I'm looking the other way, and we work as a team together. It's been a really great kind of relationship for me to work with these skulls. And it's not just a decoration. They really can become an ally, become a friend, become a guide. And that's kind of the meaning of being a skull keeper. And I think this is a great practice for anybody that's open to it. So if you're listening to this and you're like, this sounds kind of crazy, I'm not into it, that's fine. All right. We don't have to take everything on the journey. You're supposed to collect the tools and the things that make sense to you on the journey. If this is not resonating, then leave it. But if it is resonating, right, I invite you to do some of your own research, to start looking into the world of skull keeping and see what's possible. Look at the different carvings and the different styles. It's so exciting. I feel like it helps us go into the next level or the deeper level of crystal healing. So if you've already been working with crystals for a long time, like I was working for crystals for about almost 20 years. And then I discovered crystal skulls that reignited my passion for crystals again. They are the ones that gave me the Spirit Crystals book and all the guidance. They've been amazing guides for me. So It's a little out there, putting myself out there today. Thank you for listening, and I hope this resonates. And if it doesn't, leave it and then still come back. I promise it won't be as weird next time. Thank you. As always, thank you for listening. Please subscribe and share with a friend. If you haven't already done so, be on the lookout for my book, Spirit Crystals: Discover Your Crystal Guide for Healing and Empowerment, available wherever you buy books.